The grand hall of Axis Prime Station sparkled with lights from 1,000 worlds. Ambassadors, princes, and nobles from across the galaxy had gathered for the Concordat Summit, the most important political event in 50 years. Among them stood Princess Hannah of the Valorian Empire. Wearing a dress of silver and blue that matched her sad eyes, she knew why she was here. Her father, Emperor Taiyang, had arranged meetings with princes from powerful empires. He hoped one of them would marry her and create a strong alliance. But Hannah also knew the truth that made her heart heavy. No one wanted to marry the cursed princess since birth. Strange things happened around Hannah. Alien technology would flicker and die when she came near. Computers would crash. Communication devices would fail. Lights would dim and brighten randomly. The finest scientists in the Valorian Empire had studied her for years, but found no cure. They called it a quantum resonance disorder. But most people simply called her cursed. The first rejection came during the opening banquet. Prince Daeyun, of the Krill Empire, tall and proud, with scales that shimmered like gold, stood before the assembled guests. Emperor Taiyang had just introduced Hannah as a potential match. Daeyun laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the silent hall. "Marry the broken princess?" He said loudly, "I would sooner bind my bloodline to a plague than to her. Every child knows the stories. Technology dies in her presence. She would cripple my empire's future." Hannah felt her cheeks burn with shame, but she kept her face calm. She had learned long ago not to show pain in public. Her father's hand tightened on his ceremonial staff, but he said nothing. What could he say? Daeyeon spoke what everyone thought. Other princes followed with their own rejections, each one finding a polite way to say no. Prince Hyunmin from the Tef Collective mentioned ancient prophecies. Lord Jin Seok from the Federation cited technological incompatibility. Lady Yejin from the Osirian court simply shook her head and walked away. By the third day of the summit, Hannah had become invisible. Nobles walked past her without acknowledgement. Conversations stopped when she approached. She was 23 years old and had never had a real friend. Never been to a party where she was truly welcome. Never been touched without fear. Captain Giwon of Earth's diplomatic security. He watched all of this from his position near the human delegation. He was 32, with dark eyes that missed nothing and a soldier's build hidden under his formal uniform. His job was simple: protect Ambassador Minji and the other humans at the summit. But he found himself watching the Valorian princess instead. He noticed something the aliens seemed to miss. When Hannah walked past the human section, nothing malfunctioned. The datapads kept working. The holographic displays remained stable. The lights stayed bright and steady. Jiwan was a tactical thinker, trained to spot patterns and anomalies. This seemed important. During his off hours, he researched. Earth's databases had limited information about Valorian royalty. But he found medical papers about quantum consciousness technology, the kind most alien civilizations used. Every advanced empire in the galaxy had built their computers and machines to interface with psychic energy fields. It made their technology incredibly powerful, but also dependent on quantum stability. Human technology was different. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago, and Earth's computers still used old-fashioned digital systems and mechanical parts. No quantum consciousness, no psychic interfaces, just pure logic and electricity. What if Hannah didn't break technology? What if she only disrupted the quantum frequency that alien tech relied on? That would explain why human devices worked perfectly around her. Jiwan filed this information away and continued watching. On the 5th day, he saw Hannah slip away from another formal dinner where she had been politely ignored. He followed at a distance, his security clearance allowing him access to most areas of the station. He found her at the observation deck. Standing alone before the massive window that showed the stars, she was crying silently, tears rolling down her face as she stared into the void. Something about her loneliness touched him deeply. "The stars are beautiful from here," Guan said quietly in Galactic Common, the language everyone used. Hannah jumped and quickly wiped her face. "You should not be here," she said. "I am. People should not be around me. Why not?" Jiwan asked, stepping closer. "My datapad works fine. The lights are stable. I feel perfectly safe. She looked at him in confusion. You are human, she said, as if just noticing. Your technology is different, as Jiwan agreed. May I ask you something? When did you first notice that things broke around you? No one had asked her that question in years. Everyone assumed they knew her story. But this human soldier wanted to hear it from her, so she told him. She talked about her childhood, isolated in the palace. She talked about the tutors who taught her through thick walls because they feared being near her. She talked about her mother, Empress Yuna, who loved her but could barely touch her without discomfort. She talked about the loneliness that ate at her soul. Yuan listened without judgment. Then he shared his own story. He told her about being human in a galaxy that saw his people as primitives. He told her about the casual insults, the assumptions that humans were stupid or violent. He told her about proving himself every single day just to be seen as equal. They talked for 2 hours. For the first time in her life, Ana had a conversation with someone who understood what it meant to be judged for things beyond your control. When they finally parted, she smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. The next day, Emperor Taiyang made a desperate announcement at the main assembly. His voice was heavy with defeat. I will accept any reasonable offer for my daughter's hand in marriage, he said. Even from minor houses. I only want her happiness and security. The alien nobles laughed among themselves. The broken princess was not worth even a minor alliance. The grand hall filled with mocking whispers. Then Captain Jiwan stepped forward from the human delegation. His boots clicked on the marble floor in the sudden silence. He walked to the center of the hall and bowed formally to Emperor Taiyang. Your Imperial Majesty, he said clearly, I, Captain Jiwan of Earth, request permission to formally court Princess Hannah. The laughter stopped. Shock rippled through the assembly. A human? Courting a princess of an ancient empire? It was absurd. It was insulting. It was impossible. Ambassador Minji's eyes widened in surprise, but she remained silent. Emperor Taiyang stared at Jiwan in disbelief. And Hannah, standing beside her father's throne, felt her heart begin to race. Jiwan met her eyes across the distance of the grand hall. In his gaze, she saw no pity, no fear, no calculation. She saw only respect and a question. Would she give him a chance? The galaxy held its breath, waiting for what would come next. The grand assembly hall erupted in chaos. Alien nobles shouted in outrage. How dare a human, a member of the newest and weakest species in the Concordat, request to court a princess from one of the oldest empires? Prince Daeyeon stood and demanded that Jiwan be punished for his disrespect. Others joined him, calling for Earth's expulsion from the summit. Ambassador Minji rose smoothly from her seat. She was a small woman, but her presence commanded attention. The Concordat Charter allows any citizen in good standing to petition for courtship under traditional laws, she said calmly. Captain Jiwan has broken no rules, unless the Valorian Empire wishes to deny their own ancient customs. Emperor Taiyang sat frozen on his throne. Part of him was insulted. A human for his daughter? But another part of him noticed how Jiwan stood straight and unafraid despite the hostile crowd. This human had courage. And more importantly, the Emperor had seen Jiwan and Hannah talking on the security feeds. He had seen his daughter smile. I grant permission for a courtship trial, the Emperor announced. The hall fell silent. Captain Jiwan, you will have 30 days to complete 3 challenges chosen by Princess Hannah. If you succeed, my daughter may choose to accept or reject your courtship. Her decision will be final and honored. Lord Hyunwoo, the High Chancellor, stepped forward. Your Majesty, surely you cannot be serious. A human. The broken princess deserves better than this mockery. The broken princess deserves happiness, Emperor Taiyang said quietly. Something no alien prince has offered her. The trial will proceed. That night, Hannah sat in her private quarters, trying to design 3 challenges. She felt confused. Part of her was grateful to Jiwan for stepping forward when no one else would. Part of her wondered if he only wanted political advantage for Earth, and a small. Growing part of her remembered their conversation at the observation deck and hoped he was genuine. Lady Yunji, her only real friend, sat beside her. Make the challenges real, Yunji advised. Test his character, not just his abilities. Then you will know his true heart. Hannah decided on 3 challenges that would reveal who Guan really was. The first challenge was announced 3 days later. Captain Jiwan must learn the complete history of the Valorian Empire and debate our finest scholars on matters of philosophy and governance, Hannah declared. He has 7 days to prepare. The alien nobles smirked. Valorian history spanned 10,000 years. Their philosophy was considered the most complex in the galaxy. A human could never master it in 1 week. Even alien scholars spent decades studying it. But Guan had been a military intelligence officer before joining diplomatic security. His mind was trained to find patterns and connections quickly. He spent the 7 days reading constantly, barely sleeping. He did not try to memorize every fact. Instead, he looked for the underlying principles that shaped Valorian culture. On the day of the debate, 5 ancient scholars sat in judgment. They asked him about the Third Dynasty, expecting dates and names. Guan surprised them by discussing how the economic policies of that era still influence modern Valorian trade laws. They questioned him about the philosophy of balanced duality. He responded by comparing it to Earth's own philosophical traditions, finding similarities they had never considered. What impressed the scholars most was that Jiwan asked his own questions. He challenged assumptions they had held for centuries, not with disrespect, but with genuine curiosity. He wanted to understand why Valorians thought the way they did. His human perspective revealed blind spots in their own thinking. After 6 hours of debate, the lead scholar announced the result. Captain Juan has passed. He does not know everything about our empire, but he understands us. That is more valuable. Hannah watched from behind a privacy screen, feeling something warm grow in her chest. Guan had not just passed a test. He had shown respect for her culture while bringing his own unique viewpoint. He saw value in both human and alien ways of thinking. The second challenge came 1 week later. Captain Juan must survive 7 days in the Valorian Wilderness Preserve, Hannah announced. It is home to predators that have killed trained warriors. He may bring only basic supplies. This was meant to be the hardest challenge. The Wilderness Preserve contained creatures from Valoria's most dangerous regions, beasts with armored skin and razor claws, predators that hunted in packs, plants that released toxic spores. Many Valorian nobles had died there despite superior strength and advanced weapons. But Juan did not try to fight the wilderness. He adapted to it. On Earth, humans had been persistence hunters who tracked prey for days, who survived in deserts and tundras through cleverness rather than strength. Guan used those ancient skills now. He built shelter from fallen branches. He found water by watching where animals drank. He avoided predators by moving during the heat of the day when they rested. When he needed food, he set simple traps. He did not waste energy fighting creatures stronger than him. Instead, he stayed invisible and patient. On the 5th day, something unexpected happened. A group of young Valorian nobles had entered the preserve for a hunting expedition, ignoring safety protocols. They startled a herd of massive 6-legged beasts called Thurocs. The herd stampeded, and the nobles were trapped against a cliff face. Guan heard their screams. He could have stayed hidden and safe, but that was not who he was. He ran toward the danger. Using flares from his emergency kit, he created noise and light that diverted the herd's attention. He led the Thurocs away from the nobles, running until his lungs burned, using every bit of terrain to his advantage. The nobles escaped with only minor injuries. Guan finished his 7 days with bruises and exhaustion, but alive. When he emerged from the wilderness, Emperor Taiyang personally thanked him for saving the young nobles. "You risked your life for people who have mocked you and your species," the emperor said. "Why?" "Because it was right," Guan answered simply. "They were in danger. I could help. That is reason enough." Hannah heard about the rescue and felt her heart make a decision her mind was still catching up to. This was not a man seeking political advantage. This was someone who helped others because his nature demanded it. Between the challenges, Guan and Hannah were allowed supervised meetings. They walked in the palace gardens and talked about everything. She told him about growing up isolated, about the pain of being feared by everyone she met. He told her about Earth, about his family, about the pressure of representing humanity in a galaxy that saw his people as inferior. "Do you ever feel angry?" she asked one evening as they watched the sunset. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but anger without purpose is just poison. I would rather prove them wrong than hate them for being wrong." "I wish I could be that strong," Hannah said softly. Ji-won looked at her seriously. "You are the strongest person I have met. You wake up every day in a world that rejects you, and you keep trying to be kind. That takes more strength than anything I have done." No one had ever said anything like that to her. Hannah felt tears threatening and quickly looked away. The third challenge was approaching, and Hannah knew she had already made her choice. She loved him. But the final challenge still had to be completed. She announced it with a heavy heart. "Captain Juan must navigate the Crystal Labyrinth," she said. "It is an ancient structure that tests the mind, body, and spirit. Many who enter are changed. Some never emerge." What no one knew yet was that powerful enemies had decided Juan must not succeed. In the shadows, a conspiracy was forming that would threaten everything Hannah and Juan had built together. Lord Hyunwoo, working late in his office, discovered evidence that made his blood run cold. Someone had bribed the labyrinth technicians. The third challenge had been sabotaged. If Juan entered, he would die. The High Chancellor rushed to tell the Emperor. The 30 days had brought change to Axis Prime, and not everyone welcomed it. Now those who feared the future were ready to kill to stop it. Lord Hunwoo burst into Emperor Taiyang's private chamber late at night, carrying a data tablet. "Your Majesty, we have a crisis," he said urgently. "The Crystal Labyrinth has been sabotaged. If Captain Juan enters, the modifications will kill him." The Emperor's face went pale. "Show me the evidence." Hyunwoo displayed the encrypted messages he had uncovered. Prince Dae-yoon had paid technicians to alter the labyrinth's ancient systems. The changes were subtle, but deadly. Energy fields would be too strong. Illusions would become physical dangers. The trial meant to test would become execution. "We must cancel the challenge," the Emperor said immediately. "I will not have blood on my hands for political theater." "If you cancel it, you invalidate the entire courtship trial," Hyunwoo replied. "The Concordat laws are clear. All 3 challenges must be completed or the petition is void. Captain Ji-won would have to leave in shame, and Princess Hannah would remain unmarried." Emperor Taeyong slammed his fist on the table. "Then we arrest Dae-yoon now and postpone until the labyrinth is safe." That could take months, and we have no direct proof against Daeon himself, only the technicians. He was careful. A scandal without solid evidence could start a war with the Krill Empire. They were trapped between duty and conscience. Finally, the Emperor made a decision. "Bring Captain Juan to me. Let him know the danger. The choice should be his." When Ji-won arrived with Ambassador Minji, they found Hannah already there. She had been summoned as well. Her face was streaked with tears. "You cannot do this," she said the moment she saw him. "I will not let you die for a courtship challenge. We can find another way." Guan listened carefully as Lord Hunwoo explained the sabotage. When the explanation finished, everyone waited for his response. Ambassador Mingi spoke first. "Captain, as your superior officer, I order you to withdraw. This is not a fair challenge anymore. Earth will support whatever decision Emperor Taeyang makes politically." But Ji-won shook his head slowly. "With respect, Ambassador, I cannot withdraw. If I do, every human who comes after me will face the same prejudice. They will say we ran when things got difficult. They will say we are not worthy of standing beside the great empires. I have to do this. You will die." Hannah cried. "Is your pride worth that much?" "This is not about pride," Gi-won said gently, looking at her. "This is about showing that honor still matters, that someone can stand up to corruption and fear. If I walk away, what message does that send? That the old empires can cheat, and humans will just accept it." Emperor Taeyong studied the young human. "You understand? You are likely, going to your death. I understand the risks, Your Majesty. But I also believe in what your daughter and I represent. A future where different species can respect and love each other despite their differences. That future is worth fighting for. Hannah covered her face with her hands and wept. Giwan went to her and gently took her hands away. I need you to believe I can do this, he said softly. I need you to have faith. I do believe in you, she whispered. But I am terrified of losing you. Give me a reason to survive, he said. Promise me that if I make it through, you will give me your answer. Win or lose the challenge itself? I want to know your heart. I promise, Hannah said, fresh tears falling. The next morning, word spread through Axis Prime that the third challenge would proceed, but something else happened that no one expected. Admiral Suyuk arrived from Earth with 3 warships, claiming they were there for a routine diplomatic visit. Everyone understood the real message. If Captain Juan died under suspicious circumstances, Earth would consider it an act of war. The galactic community trembled on the edge of conflict. Ancient empires that had dominated the stars for millennia now faced the possibility of fighting humanity. The upstart species they had dismissed as primitives. Ambassador Minji worked around the clock trying to maintain peace, but tensions grew higher each day. Prince Kungmin, Daeon's younger brother, watched everything with growing shame. He had known about the sabotage but said nothing, loyal to his family. But now, seeing how close the galaxy was coming to war over his brother's dishonor, he could not stay silent. On the day of the challenge, thousands gathered to watch. The crystal labyrinth stood in the center of a vast arena, its walls made of a substance that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. It was old, built by the first Valorian ancestors. It had never been fully understood even by modern science. G1 stood at the entrance, wearing simple clothes and carrying no weapons. The labyrinth would provide everything he needed, or it would kill him. Those were the only rules. Hannah stood with her father in the royal viewing platform, her hands clenched so tight her knuckles were white. "Survive!" she called to him. "Just survive and come back to me." Juan smiled at her and entered the labyrinth. The crystal walls closed behind him, and he was alone. Inside, the labyrinth began its test immediately. The first challenge was physical. Walls shifted and changed, creating a maze that rearranged itself constantly. Guan had to climb, crawl, and jump through obstacles while the floor beneath him sometimes disappeared. This was where the sabotage was most obvious. Energy fields that should have guided him instead tried to harm him, but his military training helped him recognize the attacks and avoid them. The second challenge was mental. The labyrinth created illusions of his deepest fears. He saw Earth burning, destroyed by a war he had caused. He saw his family calling him a traitor for leaving them behind. He saw Hannah turning away from him in disgust. The visions were so real he could smell the smoke and hear the screams. But Juan had been trained to resist psychological warfare. He reminded himself these were illusions meant to break him. He focused on his breathing and kept moving forward. The visions could not hurt him if he did not believe them. The third challenge was spiritual. It was the most dangerous. The labyrinth showed him a future vision. In it, he and Hannah were married, but their union triggered a massive war. Billions died across hundreds of worlds. Everything burned because a human had dared to love an alien princess. The vision offered him a choice: turn back now, save the galaxy, or continue forward and doom countless lives. G1 stood in that illusion for a long time. It felt real. It felt possible. Fear whispered that maybe this was the true test, the real prophecy. Maybe he should give up Hannah to save everyone else. But then he thought about what Hannah had told him, about the prophecies that had haunted her life, about how fear of change had kept her isolated and suffering. And he realized something important. The real threat to the galaxy was not his marriage to Hannah. The real threat was the old empire's refusal to evolve, their determination to keep everything the same, no matter who suffered. "No," he said aloud to the illusion, "you are a lie. The future is not written by fear. I reject this vision." The labyrinth trembled. The illusion shattered. Giwan found himself in the heart of the labyrinth, a chamber of pure crystal that pulsed with ancient light. An voice spoke, the labyrinth's guardian, an intelligence older than most civilizations. "You have passed the trials," it said. "Your body is strong. Your mind is clear. Your heart is true. Few have come this far, and none recently. You are worthy." Outside, Prince Kyungmin stood before the assembled crowd. While everyone watched the labyrinth, he had made his decision. "I have a confession," he announced loudly. "My brother, Prince Daeyun, sabotaged the crystal labyrinth. I have proof." He displayed the evidence for everyone to see. The crowd erupted in shock and outrage. Daeyun tried to flee but was captured by guards. The Krill Emperor turned pale with shame. At that moment, the labyrinth doors opened. Giwan walked out, covered in cuts and bruises, exhausted but alive. He had survived what should have killed him. Hannah did not wait for permission or protocol. She ran from the platform, down the stairs, across the arena floor. She threw herself into Jiwan's arms, and he held her tight. "You came back," she sobbed into his shoulder. "I promised I would," he said softly, "and I keep my promises." The galaxy watched as the broken princess and the human captain embraced. The labyrinth guardian's voice echoed across the arena one final time. "This one's heart never wavered. In all my centuries, I have seen few so worthy. Honor his trial." The third challenge was complete. Now the galaxy waited for Hannah's answer. 3 days. According to Valorian tradition, Hannah had 3 days to give her answer to Jiwan's courtship. The galaxy held its breath, waiting. Some hoped she would say yes, seeing it as a new beginning. Others prayed she would refuse, wanting to preserve the old order where everyone knew their place. Hannah spent those days in deep thought. Though her heart had already decided, she loved Jiwan. But love was not simple when you were a princess. Accepting him meant binding him to a life of political complexity and constant prejudice. Was it fair to ask that of him? On the second day, a shuttle arrived from Earth carrying Dr. Jin Ho, a scientist who specialized in psychic phenomena. He requested an urgent meeting with Emperor Taiyang and brought data that would change everything. "Your Majesty," Dr. Jin Ho said, displaying complex charts and brain scans, "I have been studying every recorded incident involving Princess Hannah, I believe. I have discovered the truth about her condition. You can cure her," the Emperor asked hopefully. "There is nothing to cure," Dr. Jin Ho replied. "Princess Hannah is not broken. She has an advanced psychic ability that humanity is only beginning to understand. Her powers do not malfunction technology. They interact with consciousness-based quantum systems that most alien civilizations use. Human technology built on different principles is completely immune." Hannah was called to the meeting. She listened in stunned silence as Dr. Ginho explained. Her whole life she had been told she was cursed, that something was wrong with her. Now this human scientist was saying she simply had a gift that no one understood. "Can I learn to control it?" she asked quietly. "I believe so," Dr. Jinho said. "On Earth, we have discovered people with similar abilities. They can be trained. You are not alone, Princess. You never were. Your people just did not know how to help you." Later that day, Empress Yuna requested a private meeting with her daughter. Hannah had always been close to her mother, even though Yuna struggled to be near her due to the technology disruptions. "There is something I must tell you," Yuna said, her voice shaking. "I have abilities like yours, though much weaker. I can feel energy fields that others cannot. I experience headaches around certain technologies. For years I hid this because I was afraid." "Mother, why did you never tell me?" Hannah asked, tears forming. "Because I was a coward," Yuna admitted. "I saw how people treated you and I feared they would treat me the same way. But watching you be brave these past weeks has given me courage. Our bloodline carries this trait. We are not cursed. We are simply different." That evening, elder Sun He, the oldest living Valorian, requested to speak with Hannah. The ancient woman was nearly blind, but her mind remained sharp. "I was there when you were born," Sun He said. "I spoke the prophecy that has haunted your life. But I must tell you now that it was misunderstood. The prophecy did not say you would bring disaster. It said the star-touched child would force the galaxy to evolve beyond its current limitations. Change feels like disaster to those who fear it. All these revelations swirled in Hannah's mind as the third day arrived. She stood before the Grand Assembly once more, with Jiwan waiting below. The hall was packed with representatives from every major empire. I have made my decision, Hannah announced, her voice steady and clear. I accept Captain Jiwan's courtship. I love him, and I choose him freely. The hall erupted in both cheers and angry shouts. But Hannah was not finished. I also announced my intention to work with human scientists to understand and master my abilities. I will not hide anymore. I will not be ashamed of who I am. To those who fear change, I say this. The future is coming whether you accept it or not. I choose to meet it with hope rather than fear. Giwan climbed the steps to stand beside her. He took her hand in front of everyone, a simple gesture that meant everything. Progressive factions in the assembly applauded. Conservative factions walked out in protest. Over the following days, the political fallout was intense. Several empires recalled their ambassadors from Axis Prime. Trade agreements were threatened, but other empires, inspired by Hannah's courage, began questioning their own prejudices. Young people across the galaxy started speaking out, saying they wanted a different future. The crisis came when the Krill Empire, still humiliated by Prince Daeyun's imprisonment and trial, issued a formal challenge. A holographic message from the Krill Emperor appeared before the Concordat Assembly. The marriage between Princess Hannah and the human may proceed only if humanity proves itself worthy, the message declared. We invoke the arena of valor, an ancient tradition. Let Earth send a champion to face our finest warrior in single combat. If the human wins, the marriage is blessed. If the human loses, the courtship is ended, and humanity admits its inferior status. The arena tradition was old and honored. No one could refuse without appearing cowardly. Ambassador Minji stood immediately. We accept the challenge, she said. Earth will send a champion. Everyone assumed Jiwan would fight. He was a trained soldier and the groom. But Mingi stopped him when he volunteered. You cannot be the champion, she said privately. If you lose, it destroys everything. We need someone else, our absolute best fighter. Admiral Suyuk suggested bringing Commander Doyon from Earth. Doyon was legendary, Special Forces operative who had never lost a combat engagement. But Hannah proposed something radical. I will fight, she declared. Everyone stared at her in shock. Absolutely not, Emperor Taiyang said immediately. You have never trained for combat. You would be killed. Then I will fight alongside Earth's champion as a team, Hannah said firmly. The challenge does not specify single combat only. 2 against 2 is permitted under arena law. I want to prove that human and Valorian together are stronger than any single empire. The room fell silent. A princess had never entered the arena of valor in all of history. It was unthinkable. But Hannah stood firm, her chin raised defiantly. Empress Yuna shocked everyone by supporting her daughter. She has spent her life being protected and isolated. Let her fight for her own future. I believe in her. Emperor Taiyang looked at his daughter, seeing her truly for perhaps the first time. She was not the fragile, broken child he had tried to shelter. She was strong and determined, ready to fight for what she believed in. Very well, he said quietly. You may fight. Commander Doyon arrived from Earth 3 days later. He was tall and muscular, with scars that told stories of countless battles. When he met Hannah, his expression was skeptical. No offense, princess, but have you ever thrown a punch? He asked bluntly. No, Hannah admitted. But I learn quickly, and I have abilities that you do not. Together, we can win. Master Hound, a legendary human martial arts expert, arrived to train them. She was an old woman who moved like water, deadly despite her age. For 1 month, Hannah and Doyon trained together every day. At first, Doyon treated Hannah like fragile glass. But after she accidentally disrupted his practice weapons with her abilities, he started taking her seriously. Master Hound developed a revolutionary fighting style that combined human tactics with Hannah's psychic disruption powers. Most alien technology relies on quantum consciousness, Hound explained. Hannah can disable their weapons, shields, even targeting systems. But she must learn control. Too much power, and she disrupts everything. Too little and nothing happens. Precision is key. Day by day, Hannah grew stronger. Her body learned to move, dodge, strike. Her mind learned to focus her abilities with surgical precision. And she and Doan learned to trust each other completely. Giwan watched the training, proud and terrified. The woman he loved was preparing for a battle that could end in her death. But he also saw her transform. Hannah was discovering her own strength, proving she was not helpless or broken. Meanwhile, Jiwan threw himself into intelligence work. He discovered evidence of another conspiracy. Chancellor Inwu, leader of the conservative faction, was plotting something. Messages had been intercepted about sabotaging the arena match itself. When Giwan brought the evidence to Hannah, she made a choice that shocked him. "We proceed anyway," she said. "But we use the knowledge as an advantage. Let them try to sabotage us. We will be ready." "You could die," Guan said desperately. "Then I die fighting for what I believe in," Hannah replied. "That is better than living afraid." The month passed too quickly. The day of the arena match arrived. The stadium on Concordat Prime held 500,000 spectators. Billions more watched across the galaxy. Hannah and Doyan stood together in the preparation chamber, wearing simple combat suits. "Are you afraid?" Doyan asked her. Terrified, Hannah admitted, "but also ready. Thank you for trusting me as your partner. You have earned that trust," Doyan said with a slight smile. "Let us show the galaxy what we can do." They walked into the arena together, and the crowd roared. The arena floor was covered in red sand that had been stained by blood over centuries. Hannah and Doyan stood on one side, waiting. Across from them, 2 krill warriors emerged from the opposite entrance. They were massive creatures, each standing nearly 8 feet tall, with golden scales and muscles that rippled with power. They carried weapons that hummed with energy and wore armor that shimmered with protective shields. The crowd roared. This was the spectacle they had waited for. The cursed princess and a human soldier against the Krill Empire's finest warriors. Most expected it to be over quickly in the royal viewing platform. Jiwan sat beside Emperor Taiyang. His hands gripped the armrests so tightly they turned white. "Please survive," he whispered, knowing Hannah could not hear him. The arena master's voice boomed across the stadium. "The challenge is simple. Fight until one team yields or cannot continue. Death is permitted but not required. Honor above all. Begin." The Krill warriors charged immediately, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground. They moved fast, despite their size, weapons raised to strike. Doyon pushed Hannah to the side and rolled in the opposite direction. Forcing their enemies to split attention, the first Krill warrior swung a massive hammer at Doyon. The human dodged, using his smaller size to stay mobile. The hammer struck the ground and cracked the stone beneath. Doyan could not match their strength, so he did not try. Instead, he stayed moving, making them chase him. The second warrior went after Hannah. She stood her ground, focusing her abilities as Master Hound had taught her. As the warrior's energy blade came down, she released a pulse of psychic energy. The blade flickered and died. The warrior's shield failed. For a moment, he stood vulnerable and confused. Doyan used that moment. He struck the confused warrior from behind, hitting nerve clusters that Master Hound had identified. The warrior stumbled, but did not fall. These Krill were tough, trained since childhood for combat. The first warrior adapted quickly. If energy weapons failed, he would use pure strength. He threw his hammer aside and charged at Doyan with claws extended. Doyan barely dodged, but the claws caught his shoulder and tore through armor. Blood sprayed across the sand. Hannah felt panic rise, but forced it down. Panic would get them both killed. She focused her abilities more precisely, disrupting only the second warrior's communication systems. Now the 2 Krill could not coordinate properly. The battle became a brutal dance. Doyan used every guerrilla tactic he knew, striking and retreating, using the arena's obstacles for cover. Hannah supported him by selectively disabling their opponent's technology. Sometimes she'll shut down their targeting systems. Sometimes she disrupted their power armor. She was learning to control her abilities in real time, adapting to the chaos. But the Krill were not helpless. They were warriors who had fought in 100 battles. When their technology failed, they relied on skill and raw power. One landed a solid hit on Doyan, breaking his leg with a devastating kick. The human went down hard, gasping in pain. Hannah screamed and ran to help him. The first warrior saw his chance and charged at her. But Hannah had been training for a month. She dodged the charge and channeled all her power at once, creating a pulse that shut down every piece of technology the warrior wore. His armor locked up, servos freezing. He crashed to the ground, trapped in his own equipment. The second warrior grabbed Hannah from behind. Lifting her off the ground, she could not breathe. Her vision started to blur. From the ground, Doyan threw a handful of sand at the warrior's eyes. The Krill dropped Hannah to clear his vision, and she rolled away gasping. They fought on, bleeding and exhausted. The crowd watched in stunned silence. This was not going as expected. The princess and the human should have been defeated in minutes. But they were holding their own through teamwork and determination. Then the sabotage activated. The weapons that had been planted in the arena emerged from hidden compartments. Automated turrets locked onto Hannah and Doyan, preparing to fire lethal energy bolts. This was Chancellor Enwu's plan. Make it look like arena malfunction. No one would question their deaths in the chaos, but Jiwan had warned them this might happen. When the turrets activated, Hannah was ready. She reached out with her abilities and felt the quantum consciousness that controlled them. With a focused effort stronger than anything she had done before, she'd shut them all down at once. The turrets went dead and fell silent. On the arena displays visible to everyone, the shutdown sequence revealed the sabotage for all to see. Technical data showed the modifications, the hidden weapons, and the source commands that led directly to Chancellor Enwu. Security forces rushed to arrest the Chancellor, even as the match continued. The crowd erupted in outrage. Another conspiracy? Another attempt to cheat? The old Empire's honor was crumbling before the galaxy's eyes. The Krill warriors saw what had happened. Their opponents had been sabotaged. This was not an honest fight. The lead warrior stopped and raised his hand. "Pause," he called out in Galactic Common. The arena master halted the match. The warrior looked at Hannah and Doyan with new respect. "We were told this would be a fair challenge," he said. "But our victory was meant to come through dishonor. That is unacceptable. We request that the match continue under fair conditions, if you are willing." Hannah and Doyan exchanged glances. Both were wounded and exhausted. But Doyan nodded. "We will fight," he said, honorably. The match resumed, but something had changed. The Krill warriors now fought with respect rather than contempt. This was no longer about humiliating the weak. This was a true test of skill. The final round was brutal. Doyan could barely stand on his broken leg, so Hannah fought more aggressively to protect him. She had discovered that her abilities could do more than disable technology. She could sense the quantum fields around living beings. Reading their intentions a split second before they acted, it gave her an edge, just enough to anticipate and dodge. When the first warrior charged, she knew where he would strike before he did. When the second tried to flank her, she was already moving away. Her body was bruised and bleeding, but her mind was sharp and focused. Doyan, even wounded, used his tactical expertise to guide Hannah with shouts and gestures. Together, they fought as one unit, each compensating for the other's weaknesses. The end came suddenly. The first warrior overextended on an attack, and Hannah disrupted his balance using a precisely targeted psychic pulse at his inner ear. He stumbled. Doyan, using every bit of strength he had left, delivered a strike that knocked the warrior unconscious. The second warrior faced Hannah alone now. She was exhausted, pushed beyond anything she thought possible. But she had one more surge of power left. She focused everything she had and created a psychic pressure that made the warrior's head spin and his vision blur. He dropped to one knee, Disoriented, Hannah said quietly. We have both proven ourselves. The warrior looked up at her with respect in his eyes. I yield, he said clearly. You have won with honor. The arena exploded with sound. Half the crowd cheered, while the other half sat in shocked silence. The cursed princess and the human soldier had defeated the Krill Empire's finest warriors. Against all odds, through teamwork and determination, they had won. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. Giwan vaulted over the platform railing and ran across the sand, not caring about protocol. He reached Hannah just as she collapsed from exhaustion. He caught her and held her close. You did it, he whispered. You were magnificent. We did it, Hannah corrected, smiling through her pain. Together, Krill warriors, once recovered, saluted their opponents. We came here expecting to crush primitives and a broken princess, the lead warrior said. Instead, we found worthy opponents who taught us about honor. We withdraw our objection to the marriage. May it bring strength to both your peoples. In the days that followed, the political earthquake transformed the galaxy. Chancellor Inwu and his co-conspirators were arrested and tried. The conservative faction lost much of its power as younger, more progressive leaders rose to replace them. The Valorian Earth Alliance was formally recognized by the Concordat. The wedding was planned for 1 month later. It would be held on Axis Prime, blending human and Valorian traditions. Hannah worked with Dr. Jinho to establish a research institute for psychic abilities. Already, other Valorians with similar gifts were emerging from hiding. Inspired by her example, the day before the wedding, Hannah and Jiwan stood together at the observation deck where they had first really talked. So much had changed since that night. Are you nervous? Jiwan asked. About marrying you? Never, Hannah said, taking his hand. About everything else? Yes, we will face opposition for years. There will be people who hate what we represent. The path ahead is difficult, then we walk it together, Guan said simply. That is all we need. The wedding was beautiful. Empress Yuna cried, tears of joy. Emperor Taiyang beamed with pride. Ambassador Minji represented Earth with dignity. Even Admiral Suyuk smiled, though he tried to hide it. Representatives from across the galaxy attended, some reluctantly, others enthusiastically. When Hannah and Jiwan exchanged their vows in both Korean and Galactic Common, it felt like more than a marriage. It felt like a promise that the galaxy could change, could grow, could become something better. 5 years passed. Hannah and Jiwan had a daughter they named Sumin. The little girl showed signs of inheriting her mother's abilities, but this time, there was no fear. The Psychic Research Institute had trained dozens of individuals. What was once called a curse was now understood as a gift. Earth had become a major political force in the Concordat, respected for its innovation and moral principles. The old empires were adapting, some faster than others. Change was slow, but it was happening. One evening, Yana and Jaewon sat in their garden watching Sumin play with other children. Some were human, some were Valorian, some were from other species. They played together without fear or prejudice, the next generation learning from their parents' mistakes. Do you ever regret it? Hannah asked quietly. The challenges, the fighting, all the difficulties? Jiwon looked at her with surprise. Never. Not for a single moment. You gave me purpose. You gave me a family. You gave me a reason to believe the galaxy could be better. I was so lonely before you, Hannah admitted. I thought I would spend my whole life isolated and afraid. Then a human soldier stepped forward when no alien prince wanted me. You changed everything. You changed yourself, Juan corrected. I just gave you a reason to show the galaxy who you really were. The strength was always there. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching their daughter laugh and play. The galaxy still had problems. Prejudice still existed. Conflicts still arose. But now there was hope. Now there were examples of different species working together, loving each other, building a better future. The cursed princess was cursed no more. The human soldier had proven that worth was not measured by species or status, and their love had shown the galaxy that sometimes the greatest courage comes not from strength, but from stepping forward when everyone else refuses. Together, they had changed the stars.